I've never been the romantic type. I didn't grow up with that kind of example. My parents barely hugged, and "I love you" was something you said at funerals. But I always knew that when you have a wife, you take care of her, not just with money, but with presence, with effort. And I really tried. I married Tasha 6 years ago. When we met, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. She had that spark, the kind of woman who walked into a room and people noticed. But she chose me. I was just a warehouse supervisor back then. Rough hands, long shifts, small paychecks. Still, I had my own apartment. I cooked for her, and I always showed up. The first few years were good. Nothing fancy, just normal. We'd go out on Fridays. We'd cook together. We'd laugh at stupid shows. We'd be affectionate. We touched each other. We talked. I felt like I mattered. But for the past year and a half, it's been different. It started slowly, like most things do. She stopped grabbing my hand when we walked. She stopped kissing me when I got home. Intimacy went from once a week to once a month, and then to nothing. At first, I thought it was stress. She had just gotten promoted to assistant manager at the dental office she worked at. Long hours, more pressure. I gave her space. But then space turned into silence. Every time I brought it up, she'd sigh and say, "It's not always about sex, you know." I'd say, "It's not just about that. I miss us. I miss feeling wanted." And she'd roll her eyes. "You're too sensitive. Not everything is about feelings." I started second-guessing myself. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe men weren't supposed to care this much. So I stopped pushing. I stayed quiet. I let her set the tone. But it hurt. Every time she pulled away, every time she turned her back in bed, it chipped at something inside me. One night, I was scrolling through old photos on my phone. I came across a selfie we took on our 3rd anniversary. We were at the beach, drinks in hand, both smiling like idiots. Her head was on my shoulder. I looked at that picture and thought, where did we go? That night, I booked a motel room. It wasn't a 5-star suite or anything. Just a clean, quiet place outside the city, with a jacuzzi and a little balcony. I planned the whole thing. I got her favorite wine, ordered food from that sushi place she loves, even picked up a playlist we used to listen to when we first dated. I wanted to recreate a moment, something to remind us of who we were. I just wanted to feel like her man again, not her roommate. When I told her, she didn't react much. Just said, "Okay, let me see if I can get out early." No smile, no curiosity. Just okay. I brushed it off. Maybe she'd warm up once we got there. The night came. I got there first to check in and set everything up. I lit the little tea candles I brought from home, turned the music on low, and sprayed a bit of her favorite body mist on the pillows. I looked around the room and smiled. It wasn't perfect, but it felt right. It felt like effort. She showed up 20 minutes later. She walked in wearing jeans and a hoodie. No makeup, no perfume. She looked like she was headed to the grocery store. She didn't even glance around the room. Just said, "I'm starving. Did you order food yet?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, it's on the way. I got that spicy roll you love." She sat on the bed and immediately pulled out her phone. I sat next to her and tried to hold her hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't squeeze back either. It just hung there limp. When the food arrived, we barely spoke. I asked how work was. She said fine. I said the guys at the shop were acting up again. She nodded. I tried to toast with the wine glasses. She just rolled her eyes and took a sip. After we ate, I stood behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist. I kissed her neck. She froze. "Don't. Not tonight," she said. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. "Why not?" I asked. My voice was barely above a whisper. She sighed. "I'm just not in the mood. Can't we just relax and sleep?" I let go of her, walked to the balcony, and stood there in the dark, staring at the empty parking lot. My chest burned. It wasn't anger. It was worse than that. It was shame, humiliation. I felt like I'd just thrown a party no one showed up to. I thought about all the things I'd done to get us here. All the patience. All the nights I slept next to a woman who turned her back. All the times I told myself, be strong, be the man, don't give up. I walked back inside. She was laying in bed, still on her phone. "You can go," I said. She looked up. "What?" "You can leave. I'm not going to beg anymore. This was my last shot. I see now you don't want this. So just go." She scoffed, grabbed her purse, and walked out without another word. And that was the moment it all ended for me. The funny thing is, I actually thought we were okay that morning. When I left for work, she kissed me. Nothing deep, just a light peck on the cheek, but it was more than usual. I even texted her at lunch, looking forward to tonight. She replied, "Me too. That heart, that was the first one in weeks. It meant something to me, or at least I thought it did." She got off work early and said she needed to stop by the mall first. I assumed it was to pick up something sexy, maybe lingerie or a dress, or something to show she still cared. That gave me hope. I wanted to believe that she was making an effort too. I wasn't asking for the world. I just wanted to feel like a man again, like her man. When she came home, she didn't even come into the living room to greet me. She walked straight to the bedroom and closed the door. I could hear the blow dryer, drawers opening and closing, the little click of her makeup case. I knocked and said, "You need anything?" She replied, "I'm good. Just give me a sec." 30 minutes passed. When she finally walked out, I was floored. Tight jeans, heels, flawless makeup, a white blouse that showed just enough, and a small black purse. Hair curled perfectly. She looked stunning. For a second, I forgot everything that had been bothering me. That version of her, the one who used to light up a room and make my heart race, was standing in front of me again. I smiled and said, "Wow, you look amazing." She didn't even look up from her phone. "Let's go, I'm starving." That was the first red flag. I thought maybe she was just stressed or tired. I try not to take it personally. We got in a car. On the way to the motel, she posted a photo on her Instagram story, just her face captioned, "Dinner date night." I wasn't even in the picture. No tag, no mention, just a selfie. That stung more than it should have. We pulled up to the motel. She didn't say a word about the place. I had chosen it carefully, not sketchy, but private, clean, warm lighting, a little romantic. Not cheap, not over the top. But when she walked in, she didn't even glance around. She sat on the bed and pulled out her phone again. I asked if she wanted to shower or relax, maybe open the wine. She said, "I'll wait for the food. I'm really hungry." While we waited, I tried to talk to her. I asked her about her day, her coworkers, her plans for the weekend. She gave me short answers, kept scrolling. At one point, she laughed at something on her phone. I looked over. It was a DM from one of her girlfriends reacting to her selfie with fire emojis. She laughed and typed something back like, "Girl, you know I had to do a little something tonight." Not once did she look at me while typing that. I sat back on the chair in the corner and watched her. It hit me hard. She got dressed up to be seen. Not by me, but by her followers. By strangers. By whoever was on the other end of those emojis. Not 1 ounce of that effort was for me. The food came. She barely said thanks as she opened her sushi tray. I tried to clink our wine glasses. She rolled her eyes and said, "Babe, please, can we just eat?" I felt small. Like an accessory. Like a placeholder. After dinner, I turned the music on low. Something soft, something nostalgic. I stepped toward her and held out my hand, smiling, trying one last time. "Come dance with me for a second." She didn't even look up. What is this? A rom-com or something? I'm not in the mood, really. That's when the silence hit like a brick wall. Not anger. Not yet. Just silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. I looked at her. Really looked. And she looked like a stranger. Cold. Bored. Distant. This was the same woman I once held in bed all night, whispering dreams and plans and promises. The same woman who used to laugh at my dumb jokes, wear my shirts, sit on my lap during movies. Now, I couldn't even touch her arm without being treated like I was doing something wrong. I asked her quietly, "Why did you come tonight?" She looked at me like I was being dramatic. "Because you wouldn't stop asking." "I'm here, aren't I?" I laughed. A short, bitter laugh. Yeah, but not really. She stood up, annoyed. "If you're going to start with guilt trips, I can just leave." And that was it. I looked her in the eye and said, "Go." Her expression shifted. She wasn't expecting that. She thought I'd beg her to stay, that I'd do what I always did, swallow my pride, apologize for her distance, try to fix what she kept breaking. But I didn't. I didn't flinch. She waited a second, then said, "You're unbelievable." She grabbed her purse and stormed out. And you know what's wild? I wasn't even angry. I just felt free. I sat back down, looked around the room, candles still burning, wine half full, soft music still playing. All the things I did for her, and none of it mattered. But then my phone buzzed. A simple message. It was from a woman I worked with, Ava. We'd always had good conversation. Nothing ever crossed the line. But she noticed things. She once said, "You're always trying so hard for someone who doesn't see you." I never answered that. Her message said, If tonight didn't go the way you hoped, just know someone out there thinks you're worth all the effort. And in that moment, I realized something big. The woman I thought I loved dressed up for the world. But the woman who actually cared never needed a selfie to prove it. I didn't sit there sulking after she left the motel. There was a weird silence in that room. Yeah, but for the first time in a long time, it felt honest. It was the silence after a decision. You know, that kind of silence. Not uncomfortable. Not heavy. Just still. Like when you finally let something die that you kept resuscitating for way too long. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the crumpled napkins on the food tray. Her glass of wine was still half full. Lipstick print on it. Funny how even that felt fake. Like a ghost pretending it was ever love. And then I picked up my phone. Let me be clear. I wasn't out looking for revenge. I wasn't playing some let me show her game. I was just tired. Done. All that effort I'd been pouring into a woman who made me feel invisible. I realized in that moment I could be offering that to someone else. Or at the very least, to myself. So I opened my messages. There was someone I'd spoken to a few times. Someone who always respected my boundaries. We worked in the same industrial park. Her name was Lena. She ran logistics for a small local delivery company. Smart, quick-witted, always respectful. Nothing had ever happened between us. But she'd been kind to me. Not in a flirtatious way, in a human way. She was the kind of woman who remembered what kind of coffee I liked when we crossed paths at the gas station. The kind who'd send me links to job openings when she heard I wasn't happy at work. And sometimes, she'd just ask me, "Hey, how's your heart today?" Not "How are you?" "How's your heart?" I'd never forgotten that. I had her number. Saved, but never used outside of work stuff. Until now. I typed, "Hey, you free tonight?" I stared at it for a good minute before I hit send. Not out of guilt. Just making sure I was being real with myself. I wasn't looking to fill a hole. I was opening a door. Her reply came less than a minute later. "For you? Always." And that was that. About 45 minutes later, she knocked on the motel room door. She looked different than I'd ever seen her. Not because she was dressed up, she wasn't, but because she looked present. She didn't come with a mask on. No filters. No pretending. She walked in, took one look around the room, and paused. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. "It is now." She didn't ask questions. She didn't fish for drama or gossip. She sat next to me and said, "You look exhausted." I laughed quietly. "You don't even know the half of it." She offered to leave if I needed space. I told her I needed presence, not space. We didn't do anything that night. Not like that. We just talked. For hours. I told her everything. How I had tried to make the marriage work. How it became one-sided. How intimacy became a battlefield. How I felt less like a man and more like a nuisance. How that night at the motel was supposed to be a turning point. And it was just not the way I thought. She listened without judgment. Without interrupting. Without trying to fix it. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You gave her more chances than most men would. But not every woman deserves a man who keeps showing up after being pushed away." That sentence sat with me. We laid on the bed, fully clothed, just holding each other like two people who knew what it was to feel unseen. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't about sex. It wasn't about proving something. It wasn't about winning a breakup. It was about finally being in the presence of someone who valued my energy. It made me think about how many times I stayed in a dead relationship just because I was afraid to start over. How many nights I made excuses for her behavior. How many mornings I hoped today would be different. And how deep the damage goes when you try to earn love from someone who resents giving it. Lena didn't try to be anything she wasn't. She wasn't some fantasy rebound or picture-perfect solution. She was just real, honest, kind. The next morning, we got breakfast. Nothing fancy, diner pancakes and black coffee. I looked across the table and realized I was laughing for the first time in weeks. A real laugh, not a forced one. When I dropped her off, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "I'm not here to complicate your life, but I'm here if you need a friend who won't make you feel like a burden." And that was enough. That night at the motel, I didn't just walk away from my wife. I walked away from the version of myself that tolerated being unwanted. When I got home the morning after the motel night, something felt different. Not just in the air, in me. It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't anger. It was peace. A kind of numb clarity that only hits you after you've reached your absolute limit. I walked into our apartment, dropped my keys on the counter, and sat on the edge of the bed, The same bed I had begged her to turn toward me in so many nights before. That morning, I didn't beg. I didn't explain. I didn't try to fix anything. I just grabbed my gym bag, laced up my old running shoes, and left. That run wasn't about fitness. It was about shaking the old version of myself off. The man who waited around hoping a cold woman would remember he existed. That man didn't live here anymore. That man left the motel with a full heart and empty hands. When I got back, she wasn't there. No note, no text, which was fine. I showered, ate, and laid on the couch. That night, she came home around 8 p.m. I didn't ask where she was, and she didn't offer anything. She came in quietly, put her purse down, and stood near the doorway like she was expecting a confrontation. But I didn't give her one. I just looked at her, calm, unbothered. She looked back at me and said, "You really kicked me out last night." I nodded once. Yeah, I did. There was silence. She expected more. Some kind of apology, or argument, or guilt trip. But I was empty. Not in a weak way. In a finished way. "That was humiliating," she said. "You think I haven't felt that for months?" I asked. She looked away. No response. She walked past me and went straight to the bedroom. That was our first quiet war. No yelling. Just tension. The kind that fills a house and makes even the floorboards feel uncomfortable. The following days were more of the same. She walked on eggshells. I walked in peace. I started hitting the gym again. Not just casually, I committed. 5:30 a.m. every day. Lifting, sweating, focused. I changed my eating habits, got a fresh haircut, deleted old photos from my phone, started reading again at night instead of scrolling through her cold social media posts. She noticed. She'd peek at me from the kitchen, trying to understand the shift. One day she said, "You're being weird. Is this some kind of midlife crisis?" I smiled. "No, it's a clarity phase." She laughed, but it wasn't genuine. That laugh was the sound of someone realizing they were losing control. She thought I was going to chase her forever, that I'd always be the one trying, fixing, begging. She didn't realize that motel night wasn't just a rejection. It was my wake-up call. A week later, she asked if I wanted to grab lunch. I said I had plans. She asked with who. I said, "Does it matter?" That hit her. She didn't say anything after that, but her attitude shifted. She started being nice. She started making dinner again, asking about my day, complimenting my shirts, laughing at things I didn't even think were funny, almost like she was trying to reset the game. But I wasn't playing anymore. I responded politely, always respectful, but cold. Not mean, just detached. It wasn't an act. I wasn't pretending to teach her a lesson. I genuinely didn't feel the pull anymore. One evening, I got home late from the gym. She was sitting at the kitchen table, wine glass in hand, soft music playing. I could tell she was trying to recreate something, maybe what we used to be. She looked up and smiled. "I miss this. Us." I nodded, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, and said, "You miss who I used to be when I still needed your validation." She put the glass down, annoyed. "Why are you being like this?" And I answered truthfully, "Because you taught me to stop showing up for someone who never opened the door." The next day, she tried one last move. She wore that red dress I used to love, the one she hadn't touched in over a year. She wore perfume, cooked steak, my favorite, played our old playlist. Everything was designed to pull me back. But it was too late. I appreciated the gesture. I even thanked her. But I didn't give her what she wanted, my heart back. I realized something deeply personal that week. When a man reaches true emotional silence, not even a scream can pull him back. That's what most people don't get. When men walk away loudly, with fights and curses, it's still about trying to be heard. But when we go quiet, that's when it's over. That motel room wasn't the end of a relationship. It was the burial of a version of me that thought love was earned through pain. It didn't happen all at once. Her regret came in waves. At first, she just looked confused, like she couldn't process what was happening. It's almost like she believed the version of me that chased her would never stop existing. That no matter how cold or distant she became, I'd keep showing up with flowers, with ideas, with words, with my heart in my hands. But I stopped showing up, and that's when she started cracking. It started with little questions. "You okay? You seem far. Are we good?" I gave polite answers. Calm, neutral. "I'm fine. Just focused. We're okay. Don't worry." But she knew. She could feel it. That emptiness she once handed me with rolled eyes and excuses. Now I was sitting across the dinner table, looking her right in the face. Then came the efforts. She started sending me memes again, like we used to. Started texting me, "How's your day going?" in the middle of the afternoon, something she hadn't done in over a year. She started dressing up again. Not for social media, not for her friends, but for home. For me. But it was like decorating a house that had already been sold. I saw it all. The effort, the nervous laughs, the softer voice, but I felt nothing. Not hatred, not bitterness, just distance. She was a familiar stranger trying to rebuild a bridge she once set on fire. And then came the night. I was getting ready to head out for dinner. Not a date, just a normal night out with a few coworkers. She saw me walk out of the room, wearing a shirt she'd never seen, cologne she didn't buy, with a quiet confidence she hadn't felt for me in years. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Dinner," I said, grabbing my keys. "With who?" I looked at her. For the first time in months, I looked directly into her eyes. And I could see it, fear. Not jealousy, not control. Fear. She was losing something she thought she'd always have. I answered, calm as ever. "With people who make me feel seen." She didn't reply. Her eyes welled up, but she held it in. I left. The text started that night. "I miss us. I hate how distant we've become. Please talk to me." I didn't ignore them. I just didn't entertain the fantasy that we could go back to what we were. I knew better now. Once you see someone clearly, I mean really see them, you can't unsee it. She had treated me like an emotional doormat for too long. And it wasn't about revenge. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just wasn't willing to reopen a chapter one had finally closed. 2 weeks later, she asked if we could sit down and talk. We met in the living room. She looked nervous, like she was about to confess a crime. Her voice trembled a bit. "I know I messed up," she started. "I've been thinking a lot. About us. About how cold I was. How I took you for granted." I stayed quiet. "I was selfish," she continued. "You kept trying. You showed up. And I pushed you away." She wiped her eyes. "You have every right to hate me." I shook my head. "I don't hate you." She looked up. "I just don't need you anymore." That broke her. She started sobbing. Not loudly. Not for drama. It was that soft, breathless kind of crying. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and real. And for the first time since all this began, I didn't feel like the broken one in the room. She said, "Can't we start over?" I leaned back on the couch and took a breath. "I think you want to go back to the man who waited. The man who begged. The man who would have done anything to feel loved again." She nodded slowly, eyes still glossy. I shook my head. "But that man doesn't live here anymore. He left the night you looked at him like he was annoying for wanting to feel close to you." She covered her face with her hands. I stood up. "I hope you heal." "I do. But I'm done offering myself to people who only value me after I'm gone." That was the last full conversation we had as husband and wife. We separated a few weeks later. Quietly. No court battles. No screaming matches. She moved out, left the apartment mostly untouched. I stayed. Repainted the bedroom. Donated the wine glasses. Got a new mattress. Months passed. Sometimes she still texts. Holidays. Birthdays. Once, she sent a song we used to love. I replied, "Thanks. Hope you're well." That's it. And every now and then, when I walk by that old motel off Route 46, I remember that night. The candles. The silence. The sentence that changed everything. "You can go." Because it wasn't just her leaving that night. It was me letting go. And once I did, I found someone I hadn't seen in a long time, myself.